Yes, please start.
Thank you very much. Good day, everyone. Wherever you are in part of the world, morning, afternoon, evening, you're welcome to this exceptional program, the 2025 virtual conference. We are kicking off with something very important, a very unique topic that I hope stimulates the day for early career researchers in Africa, knowing a lot man understand the fundamentals about research. Research is about nations building, and how have all the continents been able to successfully build their own um, um, countries based on research. What is it that we as Africans, especially you early career researchers, should be doing to track the building of your nation based on research? It's indeed a pleasure to have my sister and friend, Croatia, here to speak to this very important topic. We do know that Croatia has numerous prestigious awards, many to name. I'm just going to say two that for me is very special. The UNESCO Laurel Prize for Women in Science Award, and it's because I'm a woman and she's shown exemplary example by that. But more also, that award also comes with grants making. I don't know if you have noticed the call out there for early career researchers, and you please to subscribe to the award. More recently, we just had another award from the Royal Society to CAPRISA and the team. I celebrate you for the excellent groundbreaking work you do. On that note, I'd like to call you up to please share your side and go ahead with your presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Moronike. We are really excited to be part of this great initiative. And I want to greet all of the early career scientists and not so early career scientists who may be with us this afternoon. It's such a privilege and pleasure to be with all of you. And I'm sorry, I forgot to put my slide to the first slide when I finish the practice run, but I'll get there. And I think this initiative focused on early career investigators is a very wonderful opportunity. And I have been a scientist for just over 40 years. 3 decades of those have been focused on 3 pandemics that I'll talk about. And I just wanted to do a quick reminder that one of the 3 key values that underpin my research, it's excellence, innovation, and all of this is towards service to humanity. And I just want to underscore that because I may not mention it as we go along, but I think often when we do research in low-income countries, we think we can do second-rate research. And I think given the value of science to improving lives for sustainable development, there's no compromise in doing the best science in whatever your endeavor is, whatever your subject category is. Mine just happens to be in biomedical research. But the other key issue is I think the narrative about Africa needs to change. And for many years, Africa has been viewed and continues to be viewed in some circles as a big begging bowl. And I think we have a very valuable asset in Africa, which is our youth. And our youth are not just an asset for Africa, it's for the globe. And I also think we've arrived at a time where Africa's science needs to shine, Africa's talent needs to shine, and everything that makes it an equal partner in global discussions and deliberations. And so one of the key things around science is how do we actually develop and lead more innovations? And I hope sharing with you the next 25 to 30 minutes on my journey will help you see at least one example of many examples of scientific excellence that we see growing, expanding, and really putting the spotlight on Africa and what it can accomplish. So, as I mentioned earlier, I've been doing research for just over 4 decades. The first decade was about doing research while I was getting my qualifications that I'll go through, but that's the 1980. I'm going to focus on the three pandemics that I've been working with: HIV, TB, and COVID-19. And I'll try and, in this overview, give you a bit of a background around how this all started to get us to this point. So when you look at the Center for the AIDS Program of Research in South Africa, which is about 22 years old, there was a lot that happened before that, and I want to touch on that. And when I say we, and I talk about the CAPRISA, one half of the partnership and co-founding is my husband and also research partner, Professor Salim Abdul Karim. So I like to put this up front and say, how do we work together? Because this is one type of partnership and collaboration that we all need. All of what we do is very rarely what we can do on our own. But in setting up partnerships and collaborations, how do we understand each of the partners? How do we build that trust and respect? And how do we, in coming together, bring synergy to whatever we're doing? So we both started our first degrees at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, which is in Durban, South Africa, on the East Coast. I did my BSc there in 1981 and returned to do my PhD, which I graduated in 2000. He went to medical school there at the Nelson R. Mandela School of Medicine. He did his specialist training and all of that, and including completing his PhD. I did my honors at the University of Witwatersrand, higher education diploma at UNISA, and then we both did master's degrees at the School of Public Health at Columbia University in 1987, 88. I was there in 88, he was there 87, 88. And if you know your history, you'll know that this is the period that was, in a way, reinvigorated anti-apartheid struggle point. And it was a very volatile time. And we were both very active in the student movements to fight apartheid. While we were acquiring our degrees, we continued that and continue even to this day to ensure what we do respects all human beings equally. And also we stand up for social justice in the research we do and how we conduct our lives. So this is just a quick reminder about the first pandemic that I'll talk about, which is HIV/AIDS. And so here's the first cases being reported in the early 80s. Around 83, we find the causative organism, and 84, we have the first diagnostic test. When I arrived at Columbia University, all I heard in my lectures, in seminars, in invited guest talks, and debates and deliberations was AIDS. It was the face of AIDS was very acute. We were seeing that in the US, and we were also, by invited guests at the time, also seeing this, the devastation being wrought across sub-Saharan Africa. It was very interesting in my encounters as a student with with presentations of the African epidemic. We are learning about AIDS in West Africa, Central Africa, and East Africa, and there was very little in Southern Africa. So when we both returned in at the end of 88 to South Africa, that was one of the things that we decided to focus on. And I'll come back to that in a few minutes. But one of the important gaps that we identified was how much of training and capacity building we needed to do. And our mentor, my mentor at Columbia University at the time, was Professor Zina Stein. And you'll see her in the blue shirt in the middle of the screen. And her husband, Professor Mervyn Sasser, who was my husband's mentor. And this now, when we returned shortly thereafter, the process towards establishing the first democratic elections were started. There were two South Africans who went into exile because of their political beliefs and practices. And while at Columbia, they set up this training program. And then as the AIDS epidemic and our knowledge started to generate, and we identified gaps in terms of our ability to respond to this emerging epidemic, Zina, together with us, secured a grant from the Fogarty International Center, and we started training initially epidemiologists. But over the 20 years of this particular training grant, we trained over 600 people from 25 South African institutions, and we also worked in the entire Southern African region, in Lesotho, in Swaziland, in Namibia, a more limited extent in Angola and Mozambique, and then Botswana. A few years after this grant, had their own grant through Harvard, and so we cut off that. And then over time, as the number of trainees increased, initially we did EPI, then we moved to lab sciences, immunology, virology, and started some of the clinical science training at different institutions. We also, returning trainees would train locally, and we started to foster partnerships with several countries in Africa and also India and China. And things have turned around quite a bit now. We have people going to learn from China, but these North-South, South-South relationships and partnerships were very important in this training grant. And we have about 168 masters or PhDs completed in the US, many more locally. And then we also had short-term training, and we had some medical student trainee exchanges as well. One of the important things, and this is a little bit, it hasn't been updated for a bit, but the impact in terms of publications is a lot more, and you can see the high impact publications there, New England Journal of Medicine, Science, Nature, Lancet, etc. And today, almost every major HIV study that's being undertaken in South Africa involves at least one or two of the trainees from this program, and several of them hold leadership positions, and several centers and institutes emanated from this particular investment that was made over this period of 94 to 2015. And I'll talk to you about one of the centers, CAPRISA, in a little while. So this is just a sample of some of the fellows who benefited from this training program. Busi Nkama, for example, is currently the Vice Chancellor for the College for Health Sciences at the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Some of you may recognize Glenda Gray there, who leads a lot of the vaccine research across the CTUs, and she's the immediate past president of the South African Medical Research Council. You may recognize Linda Gale Becker there, who runs different centers. And you'll see a lot more of Sinai Ngapu, who was my doctoral student, and before that, master's, and I continue to mentor him. This is Dr. Koleka Milisane, who's currently the director of the National Health Laboratory Services. And I can go on and on and on about each of these individuals, and they're just a sample of all of the trainees. One of the things that we did to ensure a 95% retention rate of trainees returning to South Africa was we never made an award for more than 2 years. If we did, they had to come back to South Africa, do some work for a year or two before they returned to do further studies, and we had a few of that. So over that time, we were based at the South African Medical Research Council. During this first period where I established the AIDS program here, I also set up a monthly AIDS forum, which helped immediately to translate the research to reach NGOs and communities. So it was like all of society kind of meeting. It was a lot of peer support through that forum. That was the basis for the establishment of the National AIDS Coordinating Committee of South Africa in 1993. And then post the elections, I was appointed as the National AIDS Program Director between 95 and 97. And that really gave me solid experience in terms of how policy is formulated and some of the programmatic challenges. And I have to say, it was a very humbling experience, because I think when you're just a scientist, you can so easily make a whole lot of recommendations at the end of your publication. But when you're there in the pound seat, you see some of those challenges. One of the things during this period was that I was elected to the International AIDS Society's Governing Council. In one of my first meetings there, I raised why is it that Africa was home to 70% of HIV infections, but not a single international AIDS conference had been held in Africa. So, when you say those, when you're in a meeting, you say that, what happens is they give you that job. So I was given the job to find a venue in sub-Saharan Africa to host a conference. And we'll come back to how eventually in 2000 we did have the first International AIDS Conference in sub-Saharan Africa, and what that did and what that led to. So following my time at the setting up the National AIDS Program, I returned to the MRC between 98 and 2000, and we were now part of the global community because sanctions had been lifted, and options, for example, to apply for competitive grants to the National Institutes of Health in the US was open. And we very audaciously decided as South African scientists to apply to be PIs on these networks, including HIVNet, which was a precursor to the HIV Prevention Trials Network, the HIV, and also the BTN, the Vaccine Trials Network. At the same time, what we saw was a growing number of AIDS cases. So we were moving in South Africa from a silent epidemic to one that was very visible, and we're seeing how young people between 20 to 40 were getting ill and dying because we didn't have access to antiretroviral treatment at that time. What we also saw with advancing AIDS disease was that tuberculosis was the most common opportunistic infection. Can I just check, am I audible, Chair?
Yes, you are very audible.
So I'll just keep going.
Yes, please.
And then, as I said, we established this Columbia University Southern African Fogarty AIDS International Training and Research Program. So between 2000 and currently, we have affiliations with the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and now I should add Columbia University. And in 2002, we established at the University of KwaZulu-Natal the Center for the AIDS Program of Research in South Africa. So I'm going to move now to the second decade and go to this conference that I was talking about. First conference, the 13th International AIDS Conference, hosted in Durban. It was a time of deep sadness across most of Africa. Life expectancy had dropped by about 20 years with all the premature loss of lives, initially of children born to mothers infected, and then subsequently with parents dying. And we also now had democracy, but we had not anticipated that our second democratically elected president would actually be caught up in the discourse of does HIV cause AIDS, and a whole lot of AIDS denialism. And I profile here at that stage Kosi Johnson, a child born with HIV, speaking at that conference and really inspiring the about 15,000 people who were here with his testimony, while the president, democratically elected, was questioning, does HIV cause AIDS? But I think bringing the meeting to Africa really helped everyone confront AIDS and what it meant for Africa. And we saw an unprecedented show of global solidarity with the establishment of Global Fund for AIDS, TB, and Malaria, and PEPFAR. It's almost like a full circle now. And if we have time in Q&A, we can talk about the current US decisions on funding cuts and what that means for a lot of the investments that have been made over the years. But at that time, also, there was a NIH RFA that was asking international sites or foreign sites, depending on what terminology you want to use, to respond to this RFA, request for applications for grants, under the umbrella of the Comprehensive International Program for Research, CIPRA, on AIDS. And it was very unusual in that it asked international PIs to come up with what they saw as priority research questions. Now, in South Africa, although we look like we very well developed infrastructure-wise and in terms of numbers of scientists, etc., that for what we needed to answer, we thought it strategic to develop a consortium, that no one of these institutions, whether it's University of KwaZulu-Natal, Western Cape, Cape Town, National Institute for Communicable Diseases, or Columbia University, could answer the questions that we needed to. So we came together as this consortium of 5 institutions, and we submitted the grant, which we were successful. We were one of 2 successful awards in that first round. China CDC was the other. Our goal was very simple: to undertake globally relevant and locally responsive research that contributes to understanding HIV pathogenesis, prevention and epidemiology, as well as the timing and for the management of TB, HIV co-infected patients. At this point in time, we are centers of excellence for the South African government's Ministry of Science and Innovation. We host the Center of Excellence for Prevention through the MRC and the Ministry of Health. We the Center for Studying HIV TB Pathogenesis. We are also a UNAIDS Collaborating Center for Research and Policy, and we are a member of the Global Virus Network Centers of Excellence. I wanted to share with you our team profile. I think gender equity is one of our sustainable development goal 5. And I think many institutions have been very mindful that it's a luxury to exclude half the world's population in endeavors, whatever that endeavor is, but certainly in science, a luxury that we cannot afford given the complex challenges that face us. And I think we're very unusual in that we have an institution that's 80% women. And I don't mean women only in the middle or bottom layers, but it's across the board. There are only 3 departments where we have more men than women. That's IT. And it's the drivers. Sorry, it's 2 departments. It's our drivers and IT department. The rest of it has this type of profile I'm showing you. Altogether, we have 15 professors, 9 associate professors, 50 PhD scientists, 10 of our 31 medical doctors also hold PhDs. We have 10 pharmacists, 3 psychologists. That's just the some breakdown in terms of demographics. The majority of the population in our categorization here locally, Black 65%, again reflecting the demographic of the country and the province, Indian, white, colored, and 98% South African. We focus on problems that are highest priority in sub-Saharan Africa, the high death rates from HIV, TB co-infection, how do we prevent infection in young women, and then the challenges with the new latest pandemic, COVID-19. So I told you I'll come back to some of the data that I mentioned earlier on our return from Columbia University to South Africa. we undertook one of the first population-based surveys, and this was in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, where we live. And what we saw surprised us. While the overall prevalence in the survey was less than 1%, telling us we're at an early stage of the pandemic, we saw 4 times more infection in women compared to men. But the really telling story was in this graph, where the red lines show you infection in women and the blue infection in men. And you see up to age 10 to 14, I should say the survey was piggybacked on an active malaria control program surveillance survey. So we're able to get data from across the life course. You see very little HIV, but in age 15 to 19, still very little HIV amongst men, but see 6-fold higher in women. And then you see the peak in age 20 to 24, and then continuing and then declining there. For men, you see a rise in age 20 to 24, and then peaking 25 to 29, and then trailing what we see in women. And subsequently, UNAIDS surveys have shown us this very similar pattern in sub-Saharan Africa. Indeed, a unique characteristic is this age-sex difference in when women get infected about 5 to 7 years earlier than men. Now, I just wanted to show you more recent data from 2010. This is in schools. You still see HIV very rare, and you see this doubling in young women in school in this particular rural high school. And I can tell you we have about 11 health districts in the province of KwaZulu-Natal. 7 out of 11 have a profile looking like this. So as I show you these slides, you can pay attention to the journals that they published in, and I'm quite happy for the slides to be shared so you can also study them at your leisure. And then a community-based survey from a couple years ago, again showing you the same age-sex difference, and just the numbers having increased so substantially. Where by age 20, about 1/3 of the women infected with HIV, and by age 25, we're looking at about half the women. By age 30, it's 70% of the women. And then you can see this very rapid catch-up around age 24, 25 with men until by the time they're in their early 30s, about half of them infected with HIV. So this is really what we describe as a hyper-endemic epidemic situation. There was still a lot of, some of our peers were saying this is nonsense, whatever. Well, in 2012, when the phylogenetics technology became available, we started to sequence this, and we're able to show this definitively. And this cycle of transmission we shared with UNAIDS. It's very much reflected on the Get on the Fast Track report, and coming back to South Africa as part of our strategic plan, and I think it's guiding a lot of priority setting. Importantly, while it was so critical, this early age of acquisition, none of the things that we had at the time, abstinence, behavior change, condoms, and medical male circumcision, were tools for young women who were very much aware of what their risks were. And so in 1990s, Zena Stein had written this piece in the American Journal of Public Health to draw global attention on this technology gap. And simultaneously, we're hearing from women in urban, peri-urban, rural communities, different levels of education, occupational practices about the need for women-initiated technologies. And so began a very long journey with many trials, many failures, and each time learning from those failures. But I should say, many of us working in what was called the microbicide field were well known as experts in failure. In around 2002, when CAPRISA was set up, one of the things we were part of was providing antiretroviral treatment for patients on AIDS, and we came across a drug called tenofovir. Very effective therapeutic agent, good safety profile, all the rest of it. And we said, I think we should switch from these non-specific agents to an ARV. And in our consultations with the community, through direct consultation in the various communities we work with over the years and decades, one of the things that came through very clearly was that they don't have sex every day. So they don't want something to be used every day, but they prefer something that would protect them when they have sex. And so we came up with this BAT24 dosing strategy to insert one gel before sex, after sex, and not more than 2 doses in 24 hours. And no sooner had we enrolled the first 3 or 4 participants, then our peers from the north decided to attack us. And there's this piece in Nature which said this trial was doomed by design. If we have time, I can go through that whole interrogation of a 4-hour global consultative meeting. Let me just come back to the in 2010, we were able to share the results at the International AIDS Conference in Vienna. This was simultaneously published open access by Science, unprecedented. And that year, this trial was ranked among the top 10 scientific breakthroughs in 2010 by Science, and one of the top 2 breakthroughs by Lancet journal. Given the kind of parlous situation we were in terms of HIV prevention, I think by then we had over 40 trials, all showing negative results, or mostly. We just had the 3 medical male circumcision trials. Again, power to men and more options. But this did make the headlines on every major newspaper across the globe. I just profile a few here. But moving on, this data, the proof of concept that ARVs prevent sexual transmission of HIV, was followed by several studies of daily oral PrEP, and became part of WHO guidelines, and today is widely available in most countries as a daily tablet of tenofovir with emtricitabine. Now, we went very excited about our very modest 39% protection. And so we tried to look, and many people said it was adherence. And what we learned was that actually vaginal dysbiosis, where some disruptions in terms of the normal vaginal environment that facilitates the loss of Lactobacilli crispatus and Gardnerella dominans, not only enhanced HIV acquisition in women, but also reduced the efficacy of typical tenofovir. I just wanted to share this with you, that from all of our lab work for between 2010 and 2020, we're now part of the Vaginal Microbiome Research Consortium, and moving data from the lab to vaginal live biotherapeutics, and doing the first in human studies to see, can we actually restore the vaginal environment to a Lactobacilli crispatus dominant one, with strains isolated from different parts of the world, including South Africa. And this is all work in progress. The first in human studies are currently under analysis, and there's a lot of interest now around the microbiome and its linked to a whole range of things, and this whole new field of live biotherapeutics. In addition, you know, when somebody gets infected, they develop antibodies. And what we have here is a special type of antibody, which is broadly neutralizing. One of our longitudinal studies of acutely infected individuals, we're able to isolate this particular BNAb and do this in partnership with the Vaccine Research Center at the NIH. And because we had longitudinal specimens in our repository, we're able to show its evolution. We were able to isolate it, make it better than it was, and this particular antibody is so effective that very small quantities evaluated by exposing monkeys have not had any breakthrough. So you give the antibody, then you challenge them with SHIV, no infections even at 0.008 milligrams per kg. And then if we look at it across other BNAbs that have been isolated, one of the most powerful ones, we've completed the first in human studies, and we currently have a larger study to signal its protective benefits that's currently underway. But just the timeline from the participant enrolling to here, just give you some idea of how much time it takes. So while some of us have focused on addressing the adherence issues, others too have been looking at a whole range of things. And we learned a few months ago about a purpose trial that we participated in using lenacapavir and 100% protection. But we have the battle that seems to be an ongoing one around access in Africa to things that have been evaluated here and ensuring we have that as quickly as possible. Moving on to TB, it's one of the main causes of death in South Africa, indeed in several countries in Africa. We didn't know when to initiate treatment in patients with HIV and TB, so we did the SAPID trial published in the NEJM, and we were able to show some important data on integration of TB HIV care and how that's impacting and averting deaths is here. And also this sorting this timing, it's became part of WHO guidelines widely now. Wherever you go, if you have HIV, TB, these guidelines inform that. And then very quickly with pandemic preparedness and the third pandemic, some of our contributions to responding to COVID-19, also highlighting how lockdowns were negatively impacting HIV and TB care and contributing to diagnostics, and then describing, giving the early first descriptions of Omicron. This is a very nice story. So in the Q&A, maybe we can pick up on this particular publication as publications go. And then just to say that the framework we use to assess our research, we start here, which is our impact on health policy practice, which includes policy deliberations, policies developed, healthcare practice, new research directions, and South African stature in science. Ultimately, how are we improving health? Some of the outcome measures are citations, science citizenship awards, media coverage, advocacy efforts, and then our outputs is in terms of new findings, which I've covered quite a bit here on a select number, journal articles, patents, trainees and graduates, and this is our inputs. And I just want to, you to spend some time thinking about outputs, outcomes, and impact, because I think quite often we just focus on the publications and not thinking beyond that. So let me give you a few examples. So this is, the number of journal articles we publish. On average, we aim to do about 150 a year. This is an aberration from COVID. But, that's where we've sort of hit the sweet spot and try and continue to do that. Importantly, and this is probably one of the most important slides in terms of publications, is we aim to publish in the top 4 journals in biomedical science, NEJM, Nature Science, Lancet, and here we have every 5 months, every 2 months, every 6 months, every month. So this is just the analysis from 2010 to 2025. And then the top 8 specific journals, impact factors, and we also pay attention to where we are first author versus where we co-authoring with others. And you can see we always try to be leading with the first author publications, reflecting that we're leading the research that we're publishing. And just again, citations, you can see, the science paper on tenofovir has just over 2,000, the Omicron about 1,000, some other work describing the epidemic, the HIV evolving epidemic, and then, some of the TB citations all getting to over 500. These are classics once they get to over 1,000. Some other ones you can see, this one's just gone over 1,000. This is with others, some of our co-authored papers, which in the interest of time, I'll move along to science citizenship and showing our leadership role in the International Science Council. I'm currently president of the World Academy of Science, our role in WHO Science Council, the UN Secretary General's technical facilitation mechanism. I'm currently co-chairing the PEPFAR Scientific Advisory Board. We're very active in the African Union Commission on COVID-19 and advising on pandemics and epidemics locally, nationally, in the region, on the continent, and globally. This is just a sample of our contribution and invitation to host this satellite meeting before the 2016 UN high-level political meeting that informed the goal of ending AIDS as a public health threat. And then more recently, doing work on sustainable development and co-organizing and co-chairing the 7th and 8th UN STI Fora in New York. Some of it around science journals belonging to editorial boards of different medical journals, and then induction to science academies. And you can see, a range from nationally, the South African Academy of Sciences, African Academy, World Academy of Sciences, Academy of Arts and Sciences, and so on, just to give you some indication of that. And then this is just to give you some idea of the research grants. We kind of try and peg it at around 250 million. These are COVID years, which skew things a little bit. These are also some of our facilities and pictures there. I wanted to flag a little bit about patents, because we do patent, but because we don't intend to make profit from our patents, we cede that to the South African Ministry of Health. We've received many awards and honors, and we are very grateful for that. I think it helps to showcase that scientific excellence is well and thriving in Africa. It serves as a role model for other young emerging scientists, and it also helps us to see how we compare with peers in other parts of the world. And I just wanted to flag this because the Lasker Bloomberg Public Service Award that Slim and I received jointly last year is viewed below the Nobel Prize as one of those. And then we're very active in communications in the communities we work in, and also through print media, electronic media. And this just gives you some indication of our media coverage, which depending on what pandemic is peaking and gaining attention, it's about scientists being voices of trust, and the public listening to us, the policymakers listening to us. And then most importantly, I wanted to focus and end on our trainees. And we have many different training programs for staff, for graduate level, postdoctoral level, and students. All that rich research that we have underway has enabled many early investigators to start off at master's level with us and complete their PhDs and then stay on as postdocs. And we have a lovely growing number of people. We do exchanges, we host medical students and so on. At any given time, we have about 200 students with us. And you can also see the Joy 2024 graduates at honors, masters, and doctoral level. I'm not going to show you all these slides, but just to tell you our diversified funding base. And then all the staff at our different health facilities where we work, adjoining hospitals and primary care clinics. So we connect very quickly and on an ongoing basis with healthcare workers at the cold face of delivery. Many partners and collaborators, all reflected here. And just to end with two quotes, one by Plato, which is excellence is not a gift, but a skill that takes practice. And we do not act rightly because we are excellent. We achieve excellence by acting rightly. And then just the importance, I think, quoting Madiba, which is addressing inequalities is not an act of generosity or charity. It is a human right. So I do apologize that I went about 5 minutes over, but I will stop here and happy to take any Q&As. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Croatia. Thanks for the brilliant session. And we wouldn't have expected any less. Three key things that struck me. As first, the consortium forming and what it means for being globally relevant and locally responsive. I don't think those words were by accident. They definitely were shown in the list of research that you've done. The second thing that also hit me was your words that said scientists being voices of trust. Scientists being voices of trust. And I think raising that around Omicron also became very important. The third, also striking, was the mentoring and mentorship and the differences that made with one particular word for somebody from me from Nigeria that knows about Japa. You have done something that is making people stay back in the country to continue to do the science they should be and be invested in national development. I'm going to ask a few questions around that, even as I wait for questions from participants. Please, participants, I'm looking forward to your questions in the chat box. I would not be able to ask you to unmute your mics. Please put the questions in the chat box and we'll be addressing that. While I wait for the questions in the chat box, I'm going to ask the first questions from me, which has to do with funding. You said you would be willing to discuss that further in what is happening with the U.S. government's response. But I'll take up that discussion by asking you. You stood on the shoulders of giants as your mentor. Hearing here that Zena Stein was actually your mentor. He is inspiring and exceptional. But knowing the many early career researchers here who just might have no mentor or who have mentors that don't even have grants, what does it mean for many of the swans to start to draw a path similar to what you're doing that has national, global relevance, locally responsive? Thank you. Over.
Thanks very much, Morenike, for that excellent summary of your key take-home messages. And I think just going back on the mentorship issue, it's such a critical thing. And I had Zena was one of my mentors, sadly passed away about 2 years ago at age 99. And I had a meeting with her about 2 months before she passed away. But I had other mentors, and I want to talk about 3 of my other mentors. I should say that throughout my life, I've been very fortunate in that my parents and family were very supportive of my choice to be a scientist, encouraged us to excel in and make education important and central part of our lives. My teachers were great in school. I still stay in touch with many of them who were important guides. So throughout life, you will have somebody who helps you, guides you, steers you, supports you when things are challenging. But 3 of my mentors since I completed my master's, one was Professor Jerry Kuvadia, who was the head of pediatrics at the medical school, and he really epitomized the science excellence in Africa, together with the social responsibility. So he was a known leader in the anti-apartheid movement, and also a top scientist. And I remember one of the things was, in our interactions while I was doing my PhD, he had just started a natural history study, and he looked very perturbed when I went to see him. And so I asked him, like, is there something wrong? And he said, yeah, we started this pathogenesis study, and we have 100% acceptance rate to participate in the studies in one of the big hospitals here, just next to the medical school. And I said, oh, why is that a problem? He says, well, there's so much of stigma and discrimination, and I feel like there's some subtle coercion going on where nobody is refusing to participate. And that really, he gave me the job to try and figure out how are we going to ascertain that participation in the study was voluntary and informed. And it was that kind of interaction of learning with him as a role model. The other was an obstetrician gynecologist, Professor Jack Moodley, and he'd done like some great work on eclampsia, always putting women first and saving women's lives, and the amazing stuff he did going to the primary care clinics as he got evidence, and trying first in the hospital and then realizing the hospital is just the repository at the end of a lot of complications. He needed to get to the coal face. And so this is like how you can work. You don't need to be stuck. You don't need large grants, large money, large amounts of money. And the other was a botanist. So these individuals as scientists show me you don't need an NIH grant, you don't need lots of money, you just need good ideas, and you can roll up your sleeves. So the first 5 years or so of my research career was about using secondary data analysis, but being guided by people, learning about what science. So anyway, a little bit long answer, but I just wanted to illustrate that we shouldn't use funding as a barrier. But having good mentors, they're irreplaceable. And you don't need one mentor, you can have several mentors. And sometimes you have a mentor that you outgrow, and that a smart mentor will guide you to the next mentor you need to be reaching out to. I know it's always my struggle with young mentees. They think I'm abandoning them. And I'm saying, no, you have me for life, but you've exhausted my capacity to guide you. You need somebody who's smarter. And that is so important, building, because they not only do they guide you, but also they create opportunities for you and they support you. So it doesn't mean you have to be rich to be a mentor. Mentorship is about magnanimity, generosity, sharing your knowledge, and being open about what works and what doesn't work. We want the young generation not to go through the same paths, not to meet the same obstacles that we went through. So I went into a lot of detail to try. Hopefully, some of you may pick up what you shouldn't do and what you can do, or some shortcuts by learning from my lessons in this journey. Thanks, Borenike.
Thank you so much. I'll pull up the next questions together, and what the next 3 questions seem to be asking is that, is there a role for non-medics, non-biomedical people to be involved in this kind of research? And I'll ask you how. That's my question for the next 4 minutes. Thank you.
Okay. I thought you were going to give me a question for 3 reasons. So one,
No, I
of
summarized
course.
3 questions into that. Yeah.
Yes. So a lot of what we do is multidisciplinary, and we're moving towards what's called transdisciplinary. So if you take our team at CAPRISA, we have clinicians, we have pharmacists, we have scientists, we have statisticians, we have data managers, we have lab technicians, we have people in IT, and so we have people in finance and admin. It does take a village to do clinical trials and take on game-changing research. And you see, we have students from across. We allow a lot of workplace experience. So, for example, in our rural clinic, when we set up, people, women particularly, thought that they had to get married and find a husband, and we kind of changed that to a point now where people are applying to medical school and getting accepted and being engineers and so on. And the nature of what we're doing is we're drawing across every breakthrough in every scientific endeavor and looking at what its relevance is. So we try to keep up with everything, and then we bring in the best or partner with the best. So it is truly a transdisciplinary effort.
Thank you so much. I'm sure there are questions, but I'm going to I'm going to stop because I just have a minute to go. Great questions, but I commit to sending the question. If you hang on here, once I send it to her and she sends the response, you would get it on the chat box. I heard a last word that I'm going to leave with here because we have 5 minutes break. Game-changing research. I think that's what Croatia Amadon, the very first word as our work started, and she's ending with that word, game-changing research. You have to truly answer questions that are relevant, and that's what you build on and increase your visibility. You become trustworthy, doing trustworthy research, working transdisciplinary, working in consortium, and together also moving forward, but also training the next generation. This is brilliant, Croatia. Congratulations to your award. Congratulations for what you're doing. Thanks for investing in the future generation. And hopefully we're going to get new, the ideas here would stimulate for the next. So we'll take a 5 minutes break now. We called it water break. Please take a 5 minutes break. Be here on the top of the hour for the next abstract session, the presenters as well as the chairs here. Have a wonderful break, everyone. And thanks once again, Croatia. Have a great day.
Thanks, Morinka. Bye-bye.
So thank you, Professor Salako. You're welcome. For the next session, I think your presenters are also here. The 5 presenters are also here. On the top of the hour, we would not be introducing you. You would be introducing yourself, and then you would go forward. I hope you're comfortable with that, sir.
Thank you very much, Morenike. I'm very comfortable with that.
Sir.
Well, you were supposed to have a practice of something.
Yes, in the 5 minutes. So, Gordon.
Okay, all right.
Yes, this 5 minutes. I think we have four more minutes now.
Okay.
So, Gordon, yes. Gordon, are you going to lead the process? Gordon Emmanuel? Gordon, you are muted. Emmanuel?
Hello, Prof. Salako, please, can you open your audio and video for us to test? Thank you.
Well, my video is locked by you.
Yes, the videos are locked by you, so we couldn't put on the video.
But you can hear me clearly, can you?
Yes, sir, we can hear you clearly, sir.
Okay, that's fine.
But they should allow your video on.
I think he's trying to get it on. Okay.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so for the session, sir, it's you. You're going to start on top of the hour. It's you. You run with it, and following the speaker notes. I'm not sure you have any slides to present.
No.
So what happens is that the secretariat will run the slide. So when you call the next person, they will move the slide. The secretariat is the one moving. Just 3 minutes. They will tell you once it's 3 minutes or 2 minutes. The secretariat will call and tell the presenter 1 more minute. And they'll just say it once. At the top of the 3 minutes, you then call the next person. And that's all. And then you have
Are
the question session.
Supposing the presenter is yet to finish?
No, they stop. They stop at 3 minutes. They've been taught. I think they've practiced.
Okay.
They're very short
Okay,
slides. The maximum is 2 slides.
Right. Okay.
The maximum anybody. Most of them have 1 slide. The maximum is 2 slides. So
okay,
I think they do know, so they're not going to exceed the hour. But if they do, they already know that they're going to be cut off. The secretariat they've been informed. The secretariat will switch off the volume at the top of 3 minutes. Yes, sir.
That's good training, right?
So we're going to start in a minute's time, and then Yemisi will address the questions for you. Have a wonderful session, sir.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Sir, I will be harvesting the question and be sending to you as a private chat, sir.
Okay, that's the question by the participants?
Yes, sir.
So it's going to be on the chat?
To you personally, sir. So that
but
you won't miss out on anyone. Or where do you want me to send it?
No, send it to the chat. Personally to me.
Sir.
Yeah.
Okay, sir.
All right. Well, good afternoon from my side here. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Let me welcome you to this session, which involves presentation of 6 abstracts that share studies exploring how environmental exposures and limited health awareness affects oral, general, and occupational health in Nigeria. The presentation highlights key issues in pollution, antibiotic misuse, and education gaps, and propose solutions like antenatal education, workforce safety, and policy reforms to protect vulnerable groups. So I invite you to relax, listen carefully, and enjoy the session as I invite the abstract presenter to share their studies. Please drop your questions in the chat box. We'll find a way to get it to the participants. Let me therefore invite the first presenter, Obey Hosadolo, who will be presenting prevalence and factors associated with dental caries among adolescents aged 12 to 15 years in rural communities in Enugu, Southeast Nigeria. Obey Hosadolo, please, your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Good day, everyone. Okay, by way of introduction, dental caries can occur among children in rural areas, and it can affect the quality of life of children when the condition is associated with pain and or swelling. The prevalence of dental caries among children varies from one location to another. And the findings of our study we have in serving as a baseline for organizing oral health intervention programs among children in underserved communities. The name of the study was to determine the prevalence and factors associated with dental caries among adolescents in selected rural communities in Enugu. And also, please, next slide. A cross-sectional study was done. Next slide, please. And we found out that 25 out of 297 adolescents who participated in the study had carious cavities, and all the carious cavities that were seen were untreated. So in conclusion of our study, the proportion of adolescents who had dental caries was low, and we recommend interventions for the untreated caries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Hosadolo. I invite Henry Chukwu to present risk awareness about tetracycline-induced tooth discoloration among pregnant women attending the University of Port Harcourt Teaching Hospital antenatal care in Nigeria. Henry, please, your presentation.
Think about a time when you were worried about the safety of something during pregnancy, either for yourself or for someone you know. that uncertainty, that potential for harm due to your lack of information. This is the reality of a significant number of pregnant women when it comes to tetracycline. But how does a seemingly helpful antibiotic carry such a worrying risk? The answer lies in its interaction with the developing tissues. Tetracycline molecules, they have an affinity for binding calcium. They cross the placenta barrier where they bind calcium in the calcifying structures to form a complex known as tetracycline calcium orthophosphate complexes. These complexes then gets deposited in the developing tooth structure, bringing about the characteristic discoloration as is seen on the slide shown. While a study has previously tested the awareness of similar population group on the two discoloring implications of tetracycline, such studies directed towards pregnant women does not exist. Another study in Nigeria showed that pregnant women had a high self-medication rate on tetracycline, on antibiotics during pregnancy. And it's particularly worrying because despite increased public health efforts against the direction of use by a physician, the unfortunateness of tetracycline is still seen in children. Because of this, we decided to answer 3 questions in our research, and we recruited women from the University of Port Harcourt Teaching Hospital's antenatal clinic. The questions are, were pregnant women aware that using tetracycline during pregnancy could induce tooth discoloration in their child? Next slide, please. 70.8% of our participants were not aware of this. Were pregnant women aware that tetracycline was contraindicated in pregnancy? 23.1% of our participants were unaware of this. What was the self-reported rate of self-medicating on tetracycline during pregnancy? 10% of our participants reported self-medicating on tetracycline. This is particularly worrying. Especially the lack of awareness and the self-medication rate on tetracycline. Therefore, we recommend that these strategies be implemented effectively so as to improve medication literacy among this population group through promotion of safer alternatives, improving screening for self-medication during antenatal clinics, engaging the community health workers so as to improve knowledge reach within the rural areas, and developing stronger policies that allows this drug to only be a prescription drug, especially to the contraindicated population. The findings from our study is a compelling reminder about the vulnerabilities pregnant women face as regards medication safety. The unfortunate lifelong consequence of tetracycline-induced discoloration is one that requires that we implement robust collaborative strategies involving both the healthcare practitioner, the public health educator, and the policymaker so that we can create an environment that is safer for our pregnant mothers and their children. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Henry, for your presentation. We quickly move on to Elizabeth Oyin-Consola to present investigation of the presence of organochlorine pesticide residues in selected surface sediment within Ijebu-Ode, Ogun State, Nigeria. Elizabeth.
Thank you, Prof, for having me. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elizabeth Omotola, and I'm here to present the outcome of my research titled Investigation of the Presence of Organochlorine Pesticide Residues in Selected Surface Sediments within Ijebu-Ode, Ogun State, Nigeria. Despite being banned, OCPs are still detected in the environment, unfortunately, and because of that, this study assesses sediment contamination within Ijebu-Ode environs. The aim of the study was to investigate for 16 OCP residues in Ijebu-Ode surface sediments. The method employed was collecting samples from 4 different areas. The samples were sieved, they were dried, they were sieved, they were sonicated using acetonitrile, afterwards centrifuged. The supernactans was cleaned up, and finally the instrumental analysis was done using the gas chromatograph mass spectrometer. Some of the target OCPs were the alpha, beta, delta, gamma, benzene hexachloride, endosulfan, epoxide, 4,4-diphenyl trichloroethane. Next slide, please. From the result, next slide. From the results, as seen in figure 1, this shows that there were varying levels of OCPs detected, with the highest concentration being the beta benzene hexachloride. The chlors, aldrine, and endrines were not detected in any of the sites. The results showed that there has been past usage of OCPs and also ongoing usage, which can be influenced by agricultural use, urban brownouts, and domestic use as well. Based on the findings of this study, it can be concluded that there is serious environmental concern as regards the presence of organochlorine pesticides in the environment. And as such, monitoring, enforcement, and public awareness has to commence or continue, as the case may be. Also, remediation strategies as regards how to remove these pollutants from the environment is key. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. I'm going to invite Tinuola Ekwade to present the Ladipo e-waste worker, risk awareness and self-reported health problems. Tinuola, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tinuola Ekwade. I work at Leeds City University, Ibadan, Nigeria, at the Surveying and Geoinformatics Department. I'm also an associate lecturer at the Environmental Management and Toxicology Unit. Imagine a world where your discarded devices are slowly poisoning the people that collect them, trade in them, dismantle and try to repair them. This is the plight of the e-waste worker at Ladipo. That is the largest spare parts market in Nigeria. We looked at 96 e-waste workers, and 92% of them were male. Now, this 92% understood what it meant to talk about e-waste. Now, 56% of them were unconcerned about the impact of e-waste on their health. 54% reported health issues after handling e-waste, maybe like their skin, eye irritation, body pain, and the likes. Now, the long-term consequences include DNA or neurological damage and sometimes cancers. So what can we do? We propose the need to push for more worker awareness of the risks associated with e-waste handling. There should be a stronger adoption of personal protective equipment in their daily activities. There should be mandatory health care and the monitoring of workers, health checks. And there should be stronger regulations concerning handling e-waste responsibly and safely. So we say we need to speak up for more policies to be made on monitoring and controlling e-waste in our environment. What you don't know may sometimes hurt you, as it is hurting the vulnerable population of e-waste workers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tinuola. I invite Olabiri Patience Folashade to present gas chromatography, mass spectrometry analysis, and in silico evaluation of a polyherbal formulation as an inhibitor of DNA gyrase. Patience, please.
Thank you very much for having me, sir. I'm Olabiri Patience Folashade, and I'm here to present gas chromatography, mass spectrometry analysis, and in silico evaluation of a polyherbal formulation and as an inhibitor of DNA gyrase. Imagine when we were young and we play hide and seek. Those times, the only times that I was being caught was when either my hand or my foot actually stuck out. Antimicrobial resistance is a growing herbal crisis, and it occurs actually when bacteria evolve and become resistant to antibiotics, making infections harder to treat and even increasing the risk of complications, leading to severe illness and even death. Thereby, it involves and demands innovative solutions. Hence, DNA gyrase becomes the culprit. DNA gyrase is an enzyme that is involved, that is inside bacteria, and it is involved in DNA synthesis in bacteria. So inhibition of DNA gyrase leads to cell death in bacteria. So our research now combines the traditional medicinal plant knowledge and with cut-edge in silico docking to identify potential antibacterial compounds that are present in the polyherbal plants. So GCMS revealed natural compounds that are present in the polyherbal formulation. And in silico docking, virtual screening and compounds that were identified were used to dock against DNA gyrase. Next slide, please. Okay. Results. It could be seen that several compounds, certain compounds were identified in our polyalba plants, and virtual screening of the compounds against DNA gyrase and also ciprofloxacin, a standard antibiotics, revealed a higher binding affinity of the lead compound that was observed, that's the 4-cholesterol 3,1-semicarbazone, having a higher binding affinity to that enzyme, that's DNA gyrase, much more than that of ciprofloxacin. And even the ADMET profiling also also made us to say that this compound has less toxicity. And these findings also made us to know that this could lead to newer treatment options. So experimental validation of this 4-cholesterol 3,1-semicarbazone as a HIT compound was what was observed in our research. And this has led us to know that nature has also inspired us to have better solutions. So we invite partnerships with academia, industry, and even healthcare institutions in order to advance antibacterial research and development. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Patience. The last presenter, I believe, is Kudus Lawal, who is presenting Catching Them from Cradle, the impact of ethics training on undergraduate medical and dental students in Nigeria. Kudus, please.
Thank you very much, Prof. Old habits die hard. One of such habits is on ethical research practice. And therefore, it is important to start ingraining ethical practice as early as possible in one's research career. And that informs this research work that I did with my co-authors titled Catching Them from Cradle, the Impact of Ethics Training on Undergraduate and Medical and Dental Students in Nigeria. Next slide. As you all know, the exposure to ethical training in undergraduate study as relates to medical and dental curriculum is quite poor. And with this, students do not have understanding of what ethics is. Therefore, when we set out to build manuscript writing capacity of students, medical and dental students, you make one of the core components of their training research ethics, and also ensure that application of this training is persistent all through the 24 weeks training. Post-training, we carry out a qualitative research using phonological research, exploring the lived experience of these participants, both pre-training and post-training, trying to see what things emerged. We carried out an in-depth interview amongst 18 out of the 20 students that were trained who consented to be a part of the study. And we analyzed the codes that emerged in Atlas AI. In terms of the pre-training lived experience, 4 themes actually emerged. One of which is ethical approval. Majority of the candidates had no knowledge of ethical approval and IRB interaction to ensure that research meets the standard ethics prior to the training. In terms of informed consent, majority of them ascribe in some informed consent to just the act of signing a document, rather understanding that it's a process which requires carrying the patient along all through the process of consenting. They have no idea of what research protocol is, and they need to stay put with protocols using standard guideline. And more importantly, they have no idea of what research integrity is in terms of publication, in terms of authorship, and all of that. So we asked them questions about what's the impact of the training we gave them has been 6 months after training. One key thing that came out in the outcome was that they started applying ethical principles in their research work. A couple of them have been able to handle ethical dilemma as relates to authorship based on the training they had. And they've been able to understand the role of mentorship in research writing and in building ethical capacity, as well as the need for further training in ethics to build their capacity. And we're happy to say that some of them have come together to form student ethics group based on the training they have. And more importantly and gratifying to us is the fact that all the participants in the study understand that having more publication, the sheer number of publications is not as important as having an ethically sound research. We therefore conclude that in order to improve the culture of integrity and ethics research among student and early career research, we need to start early. There's a need to repeat this model in every aspect of training of medical and dental students, in which research ethics is integrated into the training of students, so that in the future we look forward to a future of African researcher who have ethics as one of their premium goals in carrying out research. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you very much, Kudus, for your presentation. I believe that's the last of the presentations. Certainly, those presentation deals with health risk and awareness and exposure and impact of, except for the last presentation, the remaining one talks about possibility of contamination of our environment, the issue of antimicrobial resistance. And of course, this last point is very germane to the training of medical students, because research, many of these people, when they finish and become specialists, they do research, and yet they did not have background knowledge on research, especially ethics, which is very important as to how patient is handled, how data is handled, and yet they are coming to do teaching, which involves a lot of research and ethical issues. So I'm going to be looking at the chart to see if there are questions. No questions here as it were. Okay, let me see this. Good. I have here from Humphrey Berger. No, these are all, okay, these are not for the current speakers. Okay, let me find my own questions here for you. For Osadolo, I want you to look at these. How can insights from nutrition science, education policy, and rural development be integrated to address the underlying determinants of delta caries among adolescents in the underserved communities? What we found was that there were a lot of people who had dental cavities and they were not treated. So how does this relate to, okay? Can you quickly take that before I move on to the next person?
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Insights from nutrition science can help in oral health promotional activities where the knowledge will help in reducing intake of possible etiological factors for dental caries, which is high intake of ketogenic diets and refined carbohydrates. And for the educational policy, it can also help in creating an environment where there will be more oral health education within schools, which can also help to reduce the possible determinant for dental caries. While for rural development, the rural development will help to improve access, because the availability of basic amenities will help to improve access to oral items, because in these underserved communities, the major challenge is the fact that there's poor access, and in those areas, there are less dentists, there are less oral health professionals, and there are less facilities. In summary, I think the insight will help in oral health promotion activities. Thank you very much, sir.
Now, beyond that, do you think that research into that particular finding could bring future solutions in terms of treatment of the coloration in a better way? Because if you can't prevent and then you are getting the disease.
Okay, yes, sir. Research in those areas can also help, because research in nutrition science will help in availability of substitutes, these sugar substitutes that are less carcinogenic. And also research and collaborative research will also help in understanding other innovations in trying to reduce the burden of dental caries, like maybe availability of early fluoride containing paste that can help to stop the process and also to remineralize early caries patients. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Henry, you presented tetracycline risk awareness and showed that pregnant women were not aware, and at the end of the day, many of their babies get thick discoloration. How might collaborations between pharmacovigilance experts, the obstetricians who deliver the baby, and I also say the pediatricians who assess the baby at delivery, and community health educators, how do this improve medication safety literacy among pregnant women, such that we can reduce misinformation on drug side effects? You get the question?
Okay, yes. So thank you very much for the crucial question. Well, the pharmacovigilance experts here, they are the bedrock, okay, because they are the ones who would provide us with the most current evidence-based data on drug safety during pregnancy. So including the specific to discoloring risk of tetracycline. Also, they will also provide us with action guidelines. Now, the obstetricians, the pediatricians, and to an extent, I say the healthcare professionals in general, they are the ones who are on the front line because they are the ones that will be armed with the insights from the pharmacovigilance experts. So they then can, into every patient visit, every antenatal visit from these pregnant women, so they can be the ones to also help clarify the doubts of these women from information they might have gotten from social media or unqualified sources and prescribe safer alternatives to them. Then the community health educators here, they are also indispensable because they are the ones who would reach out to the rural communities. So they are the ones who understand the local context, the cultural nuances. They are the ones that will take the evidence-based information from both the pharmacovigilance experts and the refined observations from the obstetricians. These community health educators too, they are also a bridge of trust between the community and the findings from the other two channels. Okay, so they are the ones that will raise the red flags seen on the field of maybe misinformations about the drug in question. And then they can take this back to the obstetricians, who are the ones who empower them. Then the obstetricians and the pharmacovigilance experts can then work integratedly, okay, to bring up more targeted evidence-based responses that will ensure that accurate information travels from the source, which is the pharmacovigilance experts, down to the patient. So as at that, every aspect is consistently touched around healthcare information. So this would not only help to improve the literacy of pregnant women, but it will also systematically dismantle any form of misinformation. And at the end of the day, we can have both healthier mothers and healthier children.
Okay. What do you think government could do in terms of regulation on the availability of tetracycline, for example, in over-the-counter shops that we have around Nigeria?
Okay, just like I said in the presentation, well, the governments are the role they play is that they are the policymakers. Okay, so they can make tetracycline in question a prescription-only drug, especially to the contraindicated population, because it's contraindicated in pregnant women, and most of these women are not aware that it's contraindicated. So if they make stronger policies that make sure that tetracycline is only available on prescription. Okay, so any pregnant woman that walks into the pharmacy and doesn't have a prescription from her physician, because of this strong policy they have developed, such drugs will not be given to the pregnant woman.
Do you, in your reasoning, believe that even those who prescribe drugs may need to have some kind of knowledge in this area? It is assumed that they should have.
Okay,
Did you get that question?
Yes, I get the question. Well, it's part of the improved stricter policies, because ideally, drugs should only be dispensed by a qualified and a licensed pharmacist.
Exactly.
Okay, so a qualified and a licensed pharmacist would realize that tetracycline is contraindicated for use in pregnant women. Then, coupled with additional improved stricter policy regulations enacted by the government agencies monitoring the distribution of drugs in most of these stores. So with that in mind, they would obviously be aware that they are not supposed to give this drug to any population group that is contraindicated for their use, like pregnant women.
Thank you very much, Henry, for those responses. Now to Elizabeth, you spoke about organochlorine pesticides, contamination of the environment, especially in Djibouti, where you did this study. How can the findings from environmental toxicology be used in partnership with dental and medical professionals to assess long-term oral and systemic health risk in pesticide exposure population?
Okay, thank you very much for that question, Prof. So the data obtained in this study, in my findings, can be of help to dental professionals and even medical professionals as well. For dental professionals, they could carry out oral and systemic health surveillance using maybe biomarkers as regards their field. Saliva could be taken from the populace, and that could be tested to ascertain whether or not organochlorine pesticide are present actually in the body. Also, ecotoxicity studies of organochlorine pesticides could be carried out, especially using the concentration range I obtained in this study to ascertain the toxicity or the toxic effect of these pollutants in humans. That could be done using organisms like Daphnia, could be done using maybe plants that grow in that environment, or standard plants, as we know, maybe like Lactuca sativa, that could be used. Salmonella too can be used to ascertain their toxic impact, their chronic effect, because the chronic effect actually is the long term, while the acute effect is the short term. So that's the chronic effect can be confirmed using those organisms when they're exposed to organochlorine pesticide over a long time. Also, blood samples, urine could be gotten from the populace, from individuals, to also confirm whether the organochlorine pesticides had already damaged some organs in the system, especially where we had highest concentration of the OCPs. And very importantly is that there should be health education as regards the usage of pesticides in Ijebu-Ode and its environs. Because I remember buying beans since last year, and up until now, I think I discarded the beans like a week ago, since last year, and I kept it in a very closed container. Of course, I'm here in Ijebu-Ode at the moment. I kept it in a very closed container, and you can imagine that there are no weevils from that beans. To show the level of pesticide usage here in Ijebu-Ode. Growing up, when our parents buy beans, within 2 weeks, if the beans is not consumed, you see weevils. But unfortunately, there were no weevils. So that was just like an indices for me. I had to discard it. I didn't eat it for months, you can imagine. So health education too is important for maybe the farmers, the subsistent farmers, and even the commercial farmers as regards the usage of pesticides. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I was going to mention farmers and food crops that are grown in that environment. How well do you think the public health impacts can be mitigated in that area?
Yes, thank you very much, Prof. First and foremost, like I said, education is key. Awareness. Government can come up with policies.
Exactly. The local governments.
Yes, the local government can come up with policies educating people of the land about the effect of the usage of pesticide, and from there, things can start improving. We can use organic manures rather than synthetic pesticides that could damage the health, that could damage, important organs of the body. So I think that will do.
Yeah. Oftentimes, we relegate to the background the importance of local electronic media, even some print media, how much they could impact on public awareness campaign to mitigate this kind of problem. Do you think government should be involved in doing that, or just farmers' organizations?
Definitely, government should be involved, but unfortunately, I hope the system works to that extent that the government will be fully involved in all this, at least to keep us going.
Okay, thank you very much, Elizabeth, for your response. Tinola, you were talking about a very interesting issue that has not really attracted significant attention, which is e-waste. And many of us are involved in this without necessarily being aware of it. But you've chosen an area in Mushin, I think Ladipo is the Ladipo in market in Mushin, where you have a lot of this.
Yes, sir.
So what recommendation would you want to make to the government to be able to control the impact of this e-waste that is not being appropriately discarded, or even the group of people who are working in this environment?
Thank you very much, sir. Well, I would say that the answer will be multifaceted and even multidisciplinary in the sense of, aside training and education, there will be the need for health checks and monitoring of the people that work with e-waste, but also the government.
I don't know whether it's my own internet or yours. I can't hear you.
But he's experiencing internet challenges.
Okay. All right. So let's move on to Patience. Patience, how can traditional medicine, molecular pharmacology, and of course regulatory science be integrated to advance herbal drug development while ensuring efficacy, safety, and cultural relevance at the same time?
Hello, sir.
Hello, did you hear me?
No, sir, I can't get the question.
The question, I said, how can traditional medicine and molecular pharmacology and of course regulatory science be integrated to advance herbal drug development?
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Herbal drug development can be enhanced using molecular docking methods, because molecular docking methods virtually just try to simulate the working conditions. Most times we use molecular docking in order to simulate what happens in the lab. That is why that is the first step that's usually being done. So in molecular docking, for example, using the herbal drugs, now we try to look at the compounds that are actually present in the herbal. In the case of the one I use, it's actually a polyherbal drug. So when we look at the compounds that are present, most times we look at trying to inhibit the molecular, the normal pathway of the disease in order to try to inhibit either of the pathways. So that is why we look at the targets that can actually inhibit. So it can enhance, molecular docking can enhance the use of herbal medicine when we use it as a way to determine how it is being used and the mechanism, to actually determine its mechanism of action. Because in the one I described, the mechanism.
Go on.
Okay. The one I described, the mechanism of action is actually inhibiting an enzyme that is involved in that is involved in DNA synthesis in the bacteria. Okay. So having got that now, so the compounds in the molecular, the compounds in the polyherbal medicine can be isolated and further used. It can be isolated and used as a polyherbal preparation, sir.
So that's where we're going. So your molecular docking has pointed the fact that the drug may be useful.
Yes,
you are now going to produce a herbal preparation from it. How do you advance safety, which is very important in patients, and of course, determine efficacy and making the drug acceptable?
Okay, safety in silico too, it's passed through ADMET properties, okay, where we determine the safety. But after that, in vitro too, LD50 can also be used to ascertain the toxicity level and the safety of the herbal medicine. Then after that, antibacterial studies will also be carried out, after which clinical trials, subsequent clinical trials, to pass through the stages of different clinical trials before it could be accepted, and maybe institutions and maybe industries too can now adopt it. Passes through a lot of clinical stages, sir.
Okay. So in your experience, the earliest stage first will be animal trial. Do you think that we have enough skills and infrastructure to be able to do this? In your experience?
For the clinical trials?
Yes, animal trial, the preclinical trial.
For the clinical trials, I don't think we have the infrastructure. Actually, we do the antibacterial studies in vivo, and that can be carried out. Then some other animal studies too can be carried out to a level. Okay, but the clinical trials, I'm not too sure to the advanced stage.
Thank you. You might not have had some experience in that area. Certainly, there are centers in Nigeria that are able to do stage 3 clinical trial. Perhaps because we've not been producing our own drug, we may not have been able to do more of 1 and 2, where you determine the pharmacokinetics, the dose, the effective dose of the drug, and then, of course, the efficacy of the drug. Thank you very much, Patience, for your response. Now, Kudus, yours is very interesting because it calls for a curriculum change, so to speak, or a curriculum addition in the area of ethics education for medical people. And I think it should go beyond medical people. Most of the health workers, professionals who end up being teachers in the universities, the nurses, pharmacists, physiotherapists, at the undergraduate level, are supposed to be exposed to this ethics education. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely, Prof. Ethics is the soul of research. And if you are engaged in research, which all these professionals have mentioned, and even beyond, because sometimes we tend to look at ethics within the confines of biomedicals, but it goes beyond that. anybody involved in ethics that involve human should actually carry out the research in ethical practice. Therefore, not just medical and dental students, but all students who will be involved in research should actually be exposed to the rudiments of ethical research from the beginning, from the beginning of their exposure to research, so that they grow up in clinical research or in any form of research they do, knowing that the steps of research should be followed ethically. A research that does not follow ethical principle is invalid because it doesn't protect the subject of research. And as such, not only medical and dental students as it was focused on in this research, but all students or all persons actually who will be involved in research need to get to exposure to learning ethics of research as early as possible in their career.
Okay, thank you very much. I have on the chat here, I think we still have some time for Elizabeth. Elizabeth, please listen. If you cock a container containing beans in which weevils has not entered already, do you expect weevil to grow on it again? Please clear my doubts. This is from Surajuddin Mohammed.
Okay. That if I have my beans in the container,
yes,
initially there were no weevils, right? So will there be infestation afterwards? Is that the question?
You have cooked the beans.
Okay.
So it's wondering why you still think that it is because there is a contamination or that the beans was grown with chlorine chemicals.
No, that's a good question. It could be, it might not be, the use of pesticide might not actually be during the time of planting. It could be after the beans have been harvested. That you know how things are done here. People use sniper. Even the spray sniper, some of us are on social media, we see what these guys do. Some will use sniper just for profit, to preserve their produce after harvesting them. And we know that these things, some of them, all these organisms, some of them, they are hermaphrodites, so to say. So you don't really, sometimes you don't even have to see any of them in the container. Once the container is covered, before you know it, they multiply. I want to believe they grow in a very warm space. And now people preserve their beans by storing them in the freezer. But what about if you don't store your beans in the freezer? Just like I said, growing up, we just have our beans in the container, and within 2 weeks, we consume, we buy another. But now, even if you buy some kind of beans and you put it in the container in a warm space, there might not be weevils for long, which is an indices that it has been preserved with pesticides, apparently. So I hope I answered your question.
Well, you've given your opinion. I'm not sure if the person is satisfied, but discussion can continue later on. Now, there's a question for Obehi. What were the associated factors for dental caries that you found in your studies? Obehi.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. The factors that we assessed were age, sex, socioeconomic status, oral hygiene status, frequency of toothbrushing, and the use of fluoride-containing toothpaste. But we found out that there was no statistically significant association between dental caries experience and the factors we assessed. Thank you very much, sir.
Well, I think there's another one for you. Furthering the conversation on dental caries, will it be valuable for Nigeria to put in place structures that facilitate preventive interventions for children in primary schools? And that will require collaboration between Ministry of Education and Health.
Yes, sir. I think it will be very, very much valuable, especially in rural and underserved communities, and even in urban areas where the prevalence in those areas are high.
Okay. For the GC and MS presentation, the gas chromatography presentation, and in silico docking, what is the bioavailability score of the proposed drug from in silico docking in DNA gyrase inhibition? I think that's technical, but perhaps you during your research, you are able to calculate that bioavailability. Somebody is interested in knowing. Okay, you didn't get the question? Well, I find another question here for Osad Dono. Someone is interested. Did you obtain ethical clearance for your study?
Yes, sir, we did. And we also got permission and approval from the Post-Primary School Management Board of Enugu State and the Science, Technical and Vocational School Management Board of Enugu State. They regulate the secondary schools and the technical colleges.
Okay. Now, some states, apart from the ethics you get from the universities and teaching hospitals, oftentimes ministries and local government do ask for what they call social approval before you get into their community. And I believe it's very germane because if there is any problem in the community, they are the one that will be responsible for it. So I like the fact that you are able to get some approval from the schools and school authority. There's a question for Elizabeth. What sediments were selected for your studies and why? Elizabeth.
I'm with you, Prof. What sediments were selected for my studies? Surface sediments, precisely. Surface sediments. And they were obtained from four sites where 4 samples from each site were obtained. So those 4 samples from each site were put together. They were composited because of the cost of GCMS. And a representative sample was obtained from each of the sites using Cotrin and Conin method. So those samples were transferred in an high-stress cooler to the laboratory where they were dried, afterwards sieved, and the analysis were conducted on them.
Thank you very much. For Lawal, how many students benefited from the training on ethics? Someone is interested in that.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof. We trained 20 students, but in the study, actually 18 of them participated in the study, in the qualitative study, but 20 students were trained.
Okay. Another question for the dental care presentation. It says there was a difference in dental caries between, or was there a difference between caries in caries between female and male adolescents? Why have you used numbers instead of percentage? Did you get the question? Okay, if you don't get it, I think this should be the last from me here. What other alternative chemicals of choice that is available and safe to be used by farmers as pesticide other than organochlorine? This is for Elizabeth. Is Elizabeth on?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Someone is interested.
Alternative, yes, alternative chemicals. The question is, these chemicals, once they are proven to be good, and we can go ahead with them, but you know that the world is going green now. So I don't know, can you Is my video on, please?
No, you are not on.
I don't know.
Just go on. Okay, you want to...
You know, over time, people have been using glyphosate, for example, but they have even found out that glyphosate too can be toxic. You know, like people say that the dose makes the poison. These farmers, they don't even know the amount, the concentration of the pesticide, so to say, that should be applied on this plant. So, like I said,
I'm sorry, I will have to stop you. We have just 2 minutes more. I want to thank you all, the presenters and the audience, for being part of this very important discussion. I know that generally it's about health impacts, the risk of contamination. Well, please mute your distance if you are. We're looking at health risk awareness and environmental exposure. And some things came out clearly, which we really haven't paid attention to. The e-waste, we need to bring that awareness, not just to the researchers and the participants in it, in the research, but also to government. This is one area that is growing. We're in a digital world where most of the things that we are using will ended up being e-waste, and we need to be able to find safe place to discard some of this. The other bit is the agricultural challenge in terms of safety for food and future diseases that we may not be aware of. On my side, we know that there are some kidney diseases that have come from agrarian community. And some of the speculations are that they may be related to some of the organochlorine pesticides or some other pesticides that are used in preventing diseases to attack these plants. And therefore, we do have a lot of work to do in this area to ensure that the pesticides that are going to be used to grow food, if we don't have alternatives, are safe. And not just safe for the plants, but also safe for human consumption. And the last one that interests me more is the issue of ethics to be part of undergraduate training for health professionals who eventually will become teachers in the university in future. We need to lay a very solid foundation for them such that by the time they start to do research, they will understand better. They need to ensure good ethics, how to manage data, to ensure data safety, and all of that. I want to thank you again for this very, very beautiful discussion that we all had today. I hope that not just the presenter will benefit from the questions that have been asked, but those of us who have also listened to the end. Thank you very much. Please wait. We're going to have 5 minutes break before we start the next session. Please wait for the next session. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Prof.
Morenica, over to you.
Okay, sir. Yes, sir. So I'm going to start in 5 minutes, actually.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. God bless you. Thanks, everybody. You have a 5-minute stretch break, and we'll come on the top of the hour. On the top of the hour, we will be listening to Society for AIDS in Africa, who will be sharing about the conference, and then we'll go on to the skills building session. Thank you, everyone, for being part of this brilliant session. Thank you, Professor Salako, for the brilliant facilitation. Thank you, every single participant, for sharing your knowledge at this conference. See you guys in 2 minutes' time. Thank you. Over. Uncle Luke, please, when it's on top of the hour, you would have to start. I will be introducing you. Thank you. Over.
Hold on, you let me know. Okay. Okay, good afternoon all, and good morning for some of you that are in another area of Africa. Here we are in Ghana at the Society for AIDS in Africa headquarters. My name is Luke Bodia. I'm ICASA director and also the coordinator of Society for AIDS in Africa. We are pleased to be here together with Professor Mwenike and all the team, on this workshop on Manuscript Writing Academy. It's the first time that Society for AIDS in Africa is associating himself with this Manuscript Writing Academy. And we believe that with Professor Mwenike, we continue this venture because we can see that we have more than 2,000 people who subscribe for this. And we should continue producing this kind of workshop for our organization and society in Africa. Saying that, my presentation is just to talk about ICASA and SAR. As you know, ICASA is this year in Ghana. And the thematic of ICASA this year is ICASA in Action, Catalyzing Integrated Sustainable Responses to End AIDS, TB, and Malaria. When we are talking about AIDS, let me once again recognize here Professor CAPRISA, for the plenary that she did. Really, she reminded us about the ABC. Now we don't have again ABC. We believe that with the situation that Africa is finding itself, we should go back to the ABC so that prevention should be real and strong in the continent. Yes. As you know, Society for AIDS in Africa is an association where you all are welcome. You need to subscribe to be a board member. This is our current board. We are happy and glad and honored to have Professor Mwenike from Nigeria in the board. You can see they came from the 5 zones of Africa. And as we are currently talking to you now, we are calling for people who want to be the next board because their tenure will end in December 2025. And if you are a paid member of Society for AIDS in Africa, you are entitled to be board member. You can go to our website, you will see the criteria to be board member and to be also elected, to be also eligible and to be elector, to be voter, to vote for the best person that you think can be part of your constituency and represent you at the board level for Society for AIDS in Africa. As you know, Society for AIDS in Africa is the constituent of ICASA. The engine behind ICASA, the International Conference on HIV and STI in Africa, is Society for AIDS in Africa. And if you are not a member of the Society for AIDS in Africa, I think I will urge you, to join the society. Thank you. Next slide. Yeah, we have been in residence since 35 years now. We hosted ICASA in various parts of Africa, especially you can see West Africa, Southern Africa, so far, we are now hosting 22 conferences in 34 years. And this year, 2025, is our 35th anniversary. And we are hosting it in Ghana. And we are organizing a lot of events. And during this short presentation, I will talk about the various events that we are organizing to celebrate the 35 years of history that gather really, that reflects where we are coming from, in the 1990s, in the 90s. Till now, really the struggle was not easy and we are still fighting because now when we need to talk about domestic financing, we need to own the response. We always talk about it, but it is now a reality. And we believe that all our stakeholders, especially our government, we set up to that and we'll be able to end aid by 2030 accordingly. Next slide. Yeah, the ICASA objective this year The ICASA, you know, every ICASA has its own objective because the International Study Committee meeting, they come together and they discuss about the objective. And as you know, we send you also documentation, we send you call for thematic and objective, you know, and various parts of Africa send their proposal. And based on that proposal, the Study Committee meeting of ICASA 2025 selected these 5 objectives. The first one is catalyzing Africa progress towards triple elimination and sustainable resilient health systems through innovation and digital technologies. The second one, promote cooperation among government, communities, private sector, and international organizations to enhance health security and improve pandemic preparedness and response. The third objective is strengthen capacity and facilitate knowledge exchange for healthcare personnel, researchers, and policymakers. Empower communities and promote human rights and gender equality in the context of HIV and emerging and re-emerging diseases. And the last out of the 5 is mobilize the domestic resources and political commitment to sustain Africa progress towards achieving the UN's 95-95 target and the global health security. These are the 5 objectives for ICASA 2025 this year, which will be posted in Ghana here in our headquarters from 3rd to 8th December 2025. Next slide. And for this conference, we propose at least 15 sessions, plenary sessions. We have 15 non-abstract driving sessions. We have 15 special sessions, and we have 9 workshops. As regards to the abstract driving session, we are proposing 26 abstract driving sessions. It means what? It means that we will select a minimum of 78 oral abstracts. And you know, for ICASA, all the oral abstract is being supported directly. All people who their abstract will be selected as oral abstract, they will have what we call the free scholarship. You know, we will pay their transportation and also pay them and give them also accommodation. Then this is the program for this year, 2025. And I will invite you to come and to now apply to because the abstract session is closing, the submission of the abstract is closing this year, 30th of this May. You know, I believe that if you do not send your abstract, is the right time to do so. And we have all these sessions and the special session, non-abstract session also. We send the call for proposal out there, and various people have sent their proposal, and we are finalizing with the various groups. You know, at ICASA, we have 3 committees. We have the leadership committee, the scientific committee, and the community committee. They are working on the various thematics that you sent to us. Next slide. Yeah, ICASA abstract management, as we said, we have been open since 1st of March, and it will close 30th of May 2025. And you can see the various tracks. We have track A, basic science, biology, and pathogenesis. And for that track, the best abstract for ICASA 25 will be awarded with $1,000. And we have track B, clinical science, treatment care, best abstract also will be awarded $1,000. And for the epidemiology and prevention science, the best abstract will also be awarded $1,000. And track D, law, human rights, social science, and political science, the best abstract will be also awarded $1,000. And the last track at ICASA is track E. You know, all these tracks, they have also their subtitle. If you go to the website, you will see the subtitle that will help you to send your abstract. The last one is health system economics and implementation science. The best abstract also will win $1,000. And let me inform you that this $1,000 is just to help the young researcher, and so that at least they can, it's time that we should help them to develop the manuscript. Because when you send your abstract and you get, you are the best abstract and you get $1,000, this $1,000 should help you to develop the manuscript, because as you know, SAR is now launching his journal. And this summer around, all your abstract will be welcome as SAR journal, depending on the quality of the abstract. We have conducted serial workshop on how to write the abstract. And we believe that if you need more material, you can go to our website and you will find it. Next slide. Yeah, And as I said, for this year, we also developed the mentorship program, and we are running it now. But I believe that if you are not part of the mentorship program, now is a bit late because we are closing the call for abstract to 30th of this month. And at the same time, the call for abstract also we're running together with the mentorship program. However, next year we also run the mentorship program for you. You know, people who will be eligible. It will be great that you should watch on our website, and you will see next year program for the mentorship program. And if you want to be mentee at ICASA or at SAR, you need to be member of Society for Eastern Africa. For example, to be member for student is $10, for individual membership is $25, and for institution is $150. Next slide. Next slide. Yeah, we are also offering for this year the best abstract for the best young female researcher. This one is particular. I know that the male will not be too happy, but let us also recognize our women that are doing a wonderful job outside there. And based on that, SAR is giving this year the Edith Bongo Award, Best Young Female Researcher. Edith Bongo was the former lady of Gabon, and she was very instrumental to ICASA because in the year 2008, we wanted to host this conference, and she always helped since the inception of this conference. But she passed on, you know, she's no longer with us, but we take this advantage we take this conference, you know, to honor her. You know, we are also honoring Professor Femi Soyinka, that you know, who is let us say, the founding father of SAR and ICASA. And for this one, you can see the criteria on our website, and we are giving an award of $5,000 for the best female abstract for the Edith Bongo Award edition. Next slide. Yeah. Also, it's important that you should tell your community that to celebrate the 35 years of ICASA and SAR, we are also launching a storytelling video competition. You know, you just need to send us your video competition of 5-minute video, you know, and the first prize of the best video for people living in HIV could be $3,000, and the second prize, $2,000 for each category. I think we have 2 categories. We have a category of for the youth. We have 2 categories. Can I see? We have 2 categories for the youth. We have the first category is people living in HIV for 18 to 35, and the second category for 36 years old, you know, and above, you know. And the first prize is $3,000 for each category, and the second prize $2,000. Yes. Let me take the opportunity now to remind you again, once again, about the key date for ICASA, because we are very close. And before then, you have to know that I said already that the journal of SAR will be launched during ICASA, but we are calling for the manuscript already. And please, if you want to be part of this journey with us, this venture with us, please register as a SAR member. It will facilitate a lot of things. Next slide. Yeah. To conclude, let me refresh you again at the key date of ICASA. Registration is still going on for ICASA. You know, regular registration, it will end in August. And we have exhibition is still open. We have satellite session is still open till end of August. And we have scholarship. Please bear that one in mind. The scholarship will be open 3rd of July and close 31st of July. Please send your scholarship documentation. And the last marathon meeting, you know, marathon meeting is a meeting that we organize, you know, to finalize ICASA program. The last one will be from the 28th to 31 of August. And notice our acceptance. If your abstract will be accepted or not, you will receive it, the notification between 25 August to 29 August. We will receive all the notifications for people who submitted abstracts, you know. And the announcement of scholarship also will be sent to you maximum from 29 August to 1st of September 2025, you know. And ICASA online program will be available on our website, you know, 15th of September 2025. I urge you, you know, to keep this key date because it's very, very important if you want to send your abstract and you want to follow up about the notice or acceptance of your abstracts and other critical dates for this conference. Next. Okay, you are all welcome to ICASA 2025. 5, Accra, Ghana. And let us come together to celebrate the 35 years of the vibrant platform that ICASA has been over 35 years now. And as you know, Nigeria is not far from Accra. Let us just drive and meet ourselves here and take let us say, take the challenge to end AIDS in our region in Africa by 2030. Thank you so much for your time. I don't know, Prof, do you have some minute again, or I have just said all the time?
Yeah, you're just on top of the time, and we really thank you. Once again, encouraging us to register. We see the entire opportunity. This conference is bringing the opportunities to the doorsteps of early career researchers. If you're here and you're not, you're a senior career researcher or middle-level career researchers, please open these opportunities for your early career researchers. Please check the chat box. There are links to every single opportunity he had highlighted. Is it registration? Is it youth program? Is it the competition? Please check the links. On that note, we'd like to thank you, Mr. Luke Bodia, who is the Executive Director of the ICASA program, as well as is the custodian, the House of Knowledge, when you're talking about the Society for AIDS in Africa, that is actually hosting ICASA. We do also extensively show appreciation to Sir, who is hosting this program. They have addressed all the logistics to date, and it could not have gone this well without them. Thank you so much. Great acknowledgement. And let's go on to the skills building session. Very brief. Yes, it's a very brief session. It's supposed to be interactive, guys. Please send the questions, send the in the chat box. We want to hear you and want to engage with you on this. Why is it that we want to push very hard for you early career researchers to start thinking around South-South collaboration and move away from what we, the elderlies, have done, where we prioritize North-South collaboration? Things have to change, and we can see that, yes, we've moved a little with North-South collaboration, but if we want to run this time and get around, it has to be South-South collaboration. If there's anything you also heard this morning from Croatia's lecture, was the beauty and the success they've made first through North-South collaboration to bring in technology and technology transfer, but they also have expanded through South-South collaboration, but they're also driving the early career researchers to go that route. So this is not a talk show, and this is just to highlight the points, but I would look forward to us to engage. Secretariat, maybe this is the time we're going to allow people who have questions to be able to unmute their mics and share those questions so that we engage over the next 40 minutes. So briefly, I'm going to tell us about what South-South collaboration is, what the benefits could be. I'm not highlighting on the challenges. There are challenges, there are success stories to see, enabling factors, and things I think I want to propose, and then we open up the space. When we talk about South-South collaboration, it means about partnership between the low and low middle income countries. Who defined us as that anyway? Who defined us as low and low middle income? What does it mean when they say low and low middle income? You guys should challenge these kinds of things. But what we know is that when peers collaborate, there's a lot more stronger bonds, and there's a lot more successes in the reasoning and the thinking and the outcomes. And in doing that, you find that because your peers classified as low middle income countries, you tend to share leadership, you understand your issues, you share knowledge, and you own the product. And then you are contextualizing the studies you do to be relevant, and it comes on the platform of equity. North-South collaboration has been good, but it hasn't been equitable. And in the public space, there's a lot of debate about what is this global health, what is it truly about? And we do know that as much as it had some value, it's just individuals that may otherwise have promoted that value. As a collective, the global health agenda is more of a North-South thing, a top-down thing, and an extraction thing, because there's a superiority of power, or otherwise termed the white supremacy. It isn't on purpose. It is a construct that has been there over the years, and it doesn't leave the system overnight until things challenge and drive things to the new direction. And one of the challenges that you will be looking for is a challenge of our mindset, the way we think. You have to acknowledge that we have been colonized even in our mindset. For this change to happen, we have to gradually see that shift consciously. And please, I encourage you to be there for the third day plenary session. It promises to be brilliant. It's about colonizing this mind and how this is done actively. So what happens in the South-South collaboration is the shared challenges. You're not depending on high-income countries who will always be giving to you because you are not on the equitable page. One of the things I say about the North-South collaboration is that their standards will always be their standards, and you will keep chasing it, but you will never catch up. You would never catch up with the standards of the North because it is their routine normal standards. It is you chasing. When you emphasize on the South-South, you are peers, you are not chasing anything, you're working together to change and improve what you already have. That is the difference in context. But sadly, evidence showed that there's very little South-South collaboration, even within countries. That's the sad thing. For example, I'm from Nigeria. You see a lot of institutions collaborating with the global North, but you don't see institutions in Nigeria having MOU and collaborating. So what are we talking about? And sadly so, and the graphs also show it. One of the things our studies this show is that collaboration is in the way of colonial masters. So you find French people going to Senegal in West Africa, collaborating with France. You find us in Nigeria collaborating with UK, like Liberia collaborating US. You know, we go the way of colonization. So what are we really talking about in terms of independency from these high-income countries? We keep giving the excuses and alluding to fund. You heard it very clearly from Croatia this morning. Fund cannot be an issue, and fund cannot be driving our active, developmental-oriented research. It has to stop, and we have to change the paradigm. And this, one of the ways to change that paradigm within the context of decolonization is the South-South collaboration. And when we're talking about South-South collaboration, we're talking about building a relationship based on equity and mutual respect, where whatever it is you do, there's local ownership and local leadership. There isn't a deference to an otherwise superior authority. But within that context, there's capacity building and knowledge exchange for the good and the benefit of all parties. And there's responsiveness to local priority. Listen to Croatia, the success story they have had in South Africa is being locally relevant, contextualizing their research to the local context. My colleagues and myself did some research within the dental industry, and we found that research in dentistry in Africa is driven by the grants. The grants are not addressing the priority needs of Africa. It's doing a lot of sophisticated research. It isn't addressing the primary needs of Nigeria. So grants do address drives agenda. When we do the South-South, we start to look for collaboration and drive our agenda. Here I am, I'm very small, but I work hard and I do grants. I institute travel grants for Africans. I raise money. For the last 7 years, 8 years now, I have been supporting $1,000 travel grants for low middle income countries to attend IADR as well as IAPD. I mean, it's small, but I am doing something. Why am I saying this? You can do something to drive the change within the system. I institute PDWG grants, even for our local collaboration. I work with colleagues, excellent colleagues, that they themselves are envisioned to do these things. And we started what we call the Oral Health Initiative, where we are supporting people with our fundings and our monies to enable them learn skills to address gap areas in the country. We are doing something. I think that's the message I'm sharing. And it is not skilling. I am working hard, maybe harder than many people, to raise the money to make these things happen. But we can do it because we have a vision, and it's about South-South and building our local capacity to respond to our local needs. Of course, when we do it, we have stronger regional networks, and we have shared priorities, we have inclusive knowledge production. Of course, it's cost effective, and it's about capacity strengthening for us to be in that visual space. We do know a lot of things is happening already in the African region. African CDC is doing an excellent piece of work. I wanted to share a slide in the days of John Nkengasang when he was in African CDC, and how he moved things and changed diagnostic systems within the region. Things are happening in Latin America, which is also a low middle income country for many of the countries in there. This collaboration are also changing things. So it can happen. And that is why we started with Croatia's story. See what is happening in Africa. Now, in South Africa, now the world recognizes South Africa, that when you're doing vaccine research in the world, South Africa is the place to go. But it didn't happen overnight. It took Croatia and our team to build systems and to build human capacity that is now referenced around the world. You cannot talk about HIV research in Africa without talking about CAPRISA in South Africa. It's not possible. You're not complete. And it's also starting to evolve with TB research. But it was somebody. It was Croatia and her husband. It wasn't an external force that made it happen. They themselves chose to make things happen. So it's about small beginnings, guys. It's about small beginnings. And that is why we're focused on early career researchers, to stimulate the small beginnings. You are the future. And therefore, when you become embedded in the vision for the future, you would make change happen. Our investment as a collective on the continent on early career researchers is not by accident. It's a purposeful thing to enhance the future that we see. Before my eyes, China changed. I know China before. I mean, I know the history of China. This changed. It was an active action that made China, and it was all development by research. Don't think it happened by anything else. It was research that has changed what you're seeing in China. Before our eyes, we've seen the desert when we're talking about Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Dubai. Before our eyes, my own generation eyes, we saw those things evolve. We saw before my eyes Taiwan evolved. I saw before my eyes Malaysia evolve. And when we tell our stories, many says that Malaysia came to pick up the first grain of palm oil that made their economy rich today. Now the world is thinking about using palm oil to fuel as an alternative. But that grains was taken from Nigeria. So it can happen, but it's just you, early career researchers in Africa, must think and choose and stop complaining. One of the things I encourage people is that when you complain, that's food for researchers. It becomes an anomaly where researchers start to complain, because complaint is supposed to be the piece of work that you work on. Complaint is for you to find solution, not for you as researchers to complain. Okay, so if the problem in Africa is a problem of not accessing grant, then think, collectively come together, think and solve that problem. The economists in this place, the accountants in this place, come collectively. Remember Croatia's story, that their system are transdisciplinary. They have accountants, they have IT. So therefore, you can't be doing researches in silos anymore on the continent, early career researchers. I hope you're hearing me. You must bring critical issues onto the field and solve this problem. If funding for as grants is the problem, solve it. Solve it. We cannot solve it by going to high-income countries and saying you're solving it. And see what has happened with America. When America took this money, is money. We're crying. How come? Isn't that shocking? So we must think differently, early career researchers. Every single one of you should not leave this place the same. You must be thinking of solving the problem of Africa. You'll become rich on that. Okay? And as early career researchers, peer-to-peer learning, the Mentorship Academy is creating that platform for mentoring and learning. We're invested in you understanding. Our focus is manuscript writing, however. And manuscript writing is very important because you have to put information in the space for the public to be able to unearth for policy formulation and guidance development. So it's critical not just to get the funds to do grants, but also to disseminate that information. We are focused on building the competency to do that, okay? And you as youth, very digitally alive, create those platforms and continue to do many things. Even if it's at the end of today, you send a blog on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, you disseminate, you form, for this conference, form a group of 3-4 people and share information. Doing. Believe me, guys, you're leaving a seed behind. And there are regional organizations doing things. They're giving little grants. They're doing supporting in little ways. Invest those little things and grow on it and do better. And like I said, decolonization is a key. You must shift the power. But shifting that power means you're also promoting the values of indigenous knowledge. I keep saying there's no way you're going to continue to do global health. There's no way you're going to continue to do North-South partnership. It's not South-North partnership. I hope you're hearing and reading my lips. It has never been South-North partnership. It has always been North-South partnership. You will always lag behind because it's their standard. But once you do South-South partnership, the dynamics change, the standards change. What is normal and acceptable changes. And it is okay to be you. It's okay to be African. It's okay to use twin sticks. It's okay to, to be African. But it will only be okay to be Africans once you continue to do the South-South partnership. It will not be okay to be an African. An African must be you must become Eurocentric in his thinking as long as you continue to pursue the South-North partnership. Move from extraction to co-production. And with North-South a lot. When I say North-South, I'm not saying it's 100% extractive, but many is extractive, not because they want it to be extractive, but training of their life shows that they are always superior. We call it white supremacy. And they don't unknowingly do it. It's just a part of life to be extractive. But with the South-South collaboration, it's going to more likely be a co-productive model. And you can talk on that kind of platform and challenge your peers. In effect, I'm asking us to do things differently, and these are my recommendations, and build and fund regional research infrastructures. And I gave my own example. You can do, it doesn't have to be, and you heard Croatia say that, you don't have to look for $1 million grants. If all you have is 100,000, do something that is relevant, do it collaboratively, do it with South push it. And when you start to build that, when you get into power, because you will get into power, you start to change the national agenda. You start to inform things and change systems and structures, but by learning now. And in that process, you must continue to build your capacity, invest in capacity building. Don't spend too much time with TikTok. They're nice things, but invest in that capacity building. Tinolu, please put off your mic. Thank you. And promote open access and multilingual publication. I think it was this month I saw that China is starting to produce, I think it has, but there was something about, I think, a publishing house starting to produce manuscripts in Chinese language. And I celebrated it. English is the big thing for communication, and all of us are starting to learn English. And then when you can't speak English, they look at you as nonsense. But I said, look, who are you to look at me as nonsense? I can't speak my local language. I can speak English. You are speaking English and you can speak my local language. I'm more empowered than you are. I look forward to the day when in Nigeria we can accept publications in Yoruba, in Igbo, in Hausa, in Africa. We can write in Swahili, and the other local languages, and it's accepted by academic institutions. It's accepted. And then the H indexing and whatever it is also starts to accept it. And institutional policies must start to institutionalize the process of that decolonization. And you, early career researchers, are the future that we're looking for to make that change. On that note, I'd like to say thank you, and I'm looking forward to questions. Yeah. Apologies, I ran through that. I was speaking from the depth of my heart. All right. Any questions for me? Open up to questions at this time. Anyone? Any questions for me? Just to also acknowledge, please, in the chat box, there are questions, there are links for the ICASA registration. Please click them. There are links for the manuscript up to join some WhatsApp groups. Please note that stay on and then fill the question at the end of the day so that you can become eligible to collect your certificate. The certificate is free, but you must be able to fill the evaluation questions for the 3 days. Thank you. There's a question here that says South-South collaboration is exactly what we need. Thank you for agreeing, especially with the cutting of funding that is happening. I don't think it's because of the cutting of funding. If the funding is there, please do it. I don't even, yeah. I mean, maybe the cutting will make us look that way, but we should even drive it whether the funding is there. So South-South is key to our self-sufficiency. You're very right, sir. And Oma, apologies, I don't know the gender. It says from Olubusayo Fumilola. So please, what do you mean by South-South collaboration? I think I started that too. You do work with institutions in low middle income countries. So rather than always looking for collaboration with America, US, Europe, Belgium, you look for collaboration with Senegal, Kenya, Uganda, countries that have the same per capita index. And even within the country, collaborate between institutions, do a lot more research. One of the things you might find you doing is that you sit and then do an audit of the knowledge, attitude, and practice of students in Faculty of medicine in my institution. That has no value. That's an audit of your own university. But if you want that to be relevant, why don't you look for your colleagues in all the universities or representative universities in your country, and then do that kind of research? It's the same thing. All of you are doing the same. It's actually the same energy and investment. And then when you do that, that kind of work will have relevance for country policies, and it might have relevance for regional policies. That's the kind of thing we're seeing when we're seeing South-South collaboration, okay? There's another question, just a minute.
Prof, there's a hand up.
Okay, there's a hand up. Just give me a minute. Let me take one other question in that. Okay. All right. I'm having challenges. Okay, let's take the hands up, Gordon. And then I'm going to ask you, please, Yemisi, read out the questions to me. I think I'm having challenges moving yeah. So Gordon, yes, let's hear the voice. Let's hear the voice, yes. Whose hands is up?
Talk. Maya Mustafa, you have the floor. Unmute and speak, please.
It might be an old hand. Okay. I think we can't hear the person. Maybe the person can drop the question in the chat box. But let's, Yemisi, please, can you read some other questions for me? The network of the person isn't working well.
Thank you so much, Ma. We have people putting appreciation in the question and answer portal. Thank you very much for your great motivation. And this particular question is directed to Tinola Ikanade, one of our presenter, that the fellow is interested in GIS in climate change. Could she please get in touch with him or her and help reframe his topic? Is really an undergraduate project. Thank you.
Excellent. So maybe Tinuade, please contact that person through the chat box, and then that probably starts your South-South collaboration. Congratulations. Yes, Dr.
All right.
Yemisi.
Well noted, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, I'm listening. Next question.
We have Olu Busayo on online. Please, you have the floor.
Can you hear me, everyone?
Yes, please, we can.
Okay, thank you very much for this very insightful session. I asked an earlier question about South-South collaboration, and it's actually very, very important. But the challenge I have, I'm talking personally from my point of view and from my research experience.
Okay.
I'm trained in France, and most of the work I do, we don't have capacity to do this kind of research in Africa. So I'm trying to fine-tune and also to get people who will be willing to train in this kind of research, because in all these developed countries, they usually believe that you will always come to us, just like you have mentioned rightly. When you make discovery, they take glory for it. And it's high time we'll, raise ourselves and brace ourselves up to develop our own thing. And we can actually take glory for it. So I'm into research and synthesis of chiral compounds with really interesting biological activities. So it would be really interesting if we can do our own thing in Africa. We can collaborate with African universities, which have some preliminary facilities to access some of these kind of drugs. And it will be interesting, by the time we get to a higher level, maybe we can actually now collaborate with people with an advanced experience and collaboration. And we will start from somewhere, just like Prof said, we will surely start from somewhere. So that is my own challenge when it comes to South-South collaboration.
Thank you so much, Busayo. Before I continue, Patience, please do not put on your mic again, Patience, please. Please keep your mic off, your video off. Thank you. So Busayo, as you noted, I'm glad. Most powerful for me is the fact that you have not said it's impossible. You have seen the challenges, and you have acknowledged that it's by starting actually that we would overcome these challenges. I think one of the things we would take away from Croatia's lecture is that to look for a small core group of people that you can work with. I can tell you, and from my own experience, getting that core group of people to work with may take years. It may take, that was for me, it did not happen overnight. Even when I brought the funds and I did things, it took me a while before I identified my core teams. Now I have about 8 teams of 8 core teams. I'm doing different forms of research. There are 2-3 people I will move around with whatever, but it took time to find them. But it took me to start. And I did not stop even when I was disappointed. Even all the old partners I had found to work with, they still work. I understand their capacity. Oh, if I want data collection, oh, this person is good. If I want English, I understand them. So they are not lost partnerships, but I am better positioned. So yes, Busayo, the point is starting. And I think when we start, one of the things I'm afraid I might just be skeptical is that we might not really get to high income countries kind of level, but we will produce results that are relevant to us. What we still need in many African countries now is still basics. It's still basics. And I think we have the ability to produce that information. And even when we're doing that, doesn't mean we're not going to get northern partners. No, it doesn't mean they're excluded. It doesn't mean getting grants from those spaces they're excluded. No. But it means that we are empowered to lead a process and look for the collaborator and bring them on board rather than them looking for us and extracting. And in that kind of partnership, you're co-producing and building on knowledge transfer rather than the other way around, rather than the data extraction and genetic extractions and whatever extractions you may name it. So congratulations, Busayo, for acknowledging this. I think that's a big step in the right direction. I would like to listen to you on the 3rd or 4th virtual conference meeting. This is our first, and I'm celebrating our success, where you share in an abstract what you have done in terms of this move. Thank you very much for the voice. I see that, Gordon, there's somebody else hands up. I see Kenny's hands up. Please go ahead and unmute their mic. And after Kenny has spoken, then Yemisi, please share any other questions in the chat box. Please go ahead, Kenny.
Well, thank you. Greetings to everyone. I'm so glad to be part of this insightful presentation. I am Chuck Kennedy, Professor of Veterinary Microbiology at the University of Nigeria, Nsukka. And I'm share a very big vision, just like yours, about SASA cooperation. But what I've noticed is about the issue of funding, because most of our colleagues that link up or collaborate with colleagues overseas or in the advanced country because of the funds that are available for them. For example, you have someone who's working on something like whole genome sequencing that can be quite expensive. You'll see that he will prefer to link up with a collaborator in developed countries because of the funds available. So I think that we really have to do a lot of advocacy, maybe to our governments, to kind of advocate or allocate some percentage of the gross domestic, some finance, some funding to allow for this SASA cooperation so that this issue of mobility programs will be able to fund them.
Agree.
And then two, I was so happy that you even mentioned about publications, even our local languages and so on. But the challenge is that some universities, even if you publish in some journals, local journals, they may not even rate them as even important in terms of promotion, assessment for promotion. And that's why you see many of our people, they try to see if they can publish in the journals in the developed advanced countries. Meanwhile, the work that they do may not even be beneficial to those countries. For example, somebody can manufacture a machine to say wash bitter leaf, which is a delicacy in Nigeria. And then when you talk about publishing that, probably a work such a work in a local journal that can have relevance to the population, he will find it very reluctant, because if he publishes there, then the rating for his promotion, that rating such publication will be very low. And therefore, he prefers to struggle and see that it is sent in advanced publications, journals in advanced country. So we really need to look inward and talk to ourselves about this issue of trying to see publications coming from outside as if they are more superior than those published, the journals, local journals. So we should be talking about the value of the publication, or not the value, not the journal. So I'm so
you
happy
very much.
that
Yes.
yes.
Kenny, I mean, there's no argument. Your issues are very valid and very right. However, one of the things we're talking and encouraging here is the future. I completely agree with you. This kind of standards that you've already seen are institutionalized, and they're not going to change overnight. No. However, what we're saying is that the over 2,000 persons that were registered for this conference and the over 600, 400, 500 here listening and participating, you are the future, which means you, Kennedy, when you become the executive director of the Central Office of Research of your institution, you have a different mindset. And in that position, you can change things. When you become head of departments, when you become deans of faculties, when you become head of institutions, when you sit at a table and they want to hear voices, you chip in this voice. It will not be agreed on a day, but you have chipped in a voice that is allowing for the debates to happen. However, we must look for a future where that change is going to happen. It's a trajectory. Even see what Croatia talked about and the success in South Africa. It doesn't mean the whole of South Africa has changed, but over a number of years, they've changed the trajectory already. They have changed the trajectory. If Croatia and her husband stands before the government of South Africa today, they will listen. But it did not start yesterday. It started many years back. So yes, Kennedy, your words are very right. And yes, Kennedy, this is the present. What we're asking is for the future. And we're asking that with this collective mind, we can make that transition happen shorter and faster than waiting for several centuries to happen. Thank you very much for your brilliant discussion and presentation. Yes, Yemisi, do we have questions? We have another 14 minutes and let's take as much as we can take. Yeah. Yemisi.
Thank you so much, ma.
Yes,
Thank
please.
you so much, ma. Someone is here thanking you for the brilliant presentation and asking that, can you please give an example where South-South collaboration has been successful?
Oh, there are many. I wish I drew up a map. There are many success stories around treatment. I've worked in the HIV field, and I'm sorry, maybe that's where I can bring back experience. But it happens. There's a lot of successful South-South collaboration that has been promoted through the Walter Reed's institution. There's been a lot of successful South-South collaboration that has been promoted by EDCTP projects. I'm sorry, I mean, I could have brought a map. It's in one of the publications I did, but it's very much biomedical centered. I do know that also successful South-South collaborations that we've seen in the agric field. So I do have a map of the world in HIV that I could have brought. It's small, it's few, but it's starting. The other beautiful thing about what you're seeing within the African continent is that people believe and understand it, and those in the top management space, in the regional space, are pushing it. So you've seen a lot of things happening that you may not know, but by African CDC, starting with John Nkengasong, and now the current African CDC direction, they are moving momentum in this direction. A lot of momentum that you probably don't know, but it's heavily happening. And it's going to trickle down with the successes and the breaks that they are having. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I mean, I shared a few. I've said a few, but I do have a publication that had a map of the South-South collaboration happening strongly. But note once again that those South-South collaboration that they are getting 50 million grants, 80 million grants, 180, 250 million grants started by people dreaming and moving things in little ways, getting actors together and being friends and moving things forward. Thank you. Next question, please.
Another question.
Just to encourage, please stay behind and fill the evaluation form at the end of the day. I think 5 minutes to the top of the hour. Gordon or Emmanuel will send the link and then you can start filling. Yes, Yemisi, please go ahead with the question.
Mr. Rufai is asking that he is interested in pediatric immunology and rheumatology. which is a very gray area in Nigeria. How do you advise South-South collaboration in this type of upcoming area in Nigeria, ma?
I'm sure you know your field and you know the people there and you can work. When I started and I want collaboration, I just simply ask, I go out to people. I hope you know that researchers' food is research. For example, the first time I was going to do a piece of work on early childhood caries, I think I ended up writing a book with chapters from 53 or 54 countries. I just went to ResearchGate and I said I wanted to do this piece of work. Who is interested? Let me tell you how that piece of work started. I sent a piece of work to my newsletter, 500 words piece. It took me less than an hour to put that 500 words together. And then, well, I had a senior person who didn't like me and then said, oh, they shouldn't publish it. So I took it exactly to a journal and the journal accepted it. And then I said, what? The journal can accept this piece, top journal, not, so it must be good. And I did it in less than, I put it together in less than an hour. So I withdrew the paper and then I decided I was going to write a book. That if I could get the 204 countries around the world to write 500 pieces worth about early childhood caries, I mean, that's a book. So I went to ResearchGate and I launched it. Who's interested in partnering? And I think I got 53 partners and I wrote that very good book. But it was in that process I got my first research partner, who is good, Maha El-Tantawi. If you Google me, you probably see that we've done over 100 pieces of work together between 2016 till now. And that piece of work actually happened in 2016 or 2018. And that's how it started. Guys, I had no dime, zero. Well, because of that piece of work, every person that wrote a chapter in that book, can't remember how many chapters, we now came together and formed a collaboration early childhood caries advocacy group. That advocacy group, it was 2016, has now moved on from my leadership to a leadership in Canada. You find it now settled because we now started to rotate leadership and the next leader is moving into the next level. Within that leadership, there's another one likely. He's looking, it's not just beyond writing manuscripts and doing secondary data analysis. You heard Croatia talking about the power of secondary data leadership and secondary data generation. So we did secondary data generation, answering real questions that had not been answered, zero kobo. And now he's looking and getting funding to enable us to primary data collection. This is 2016 to 2025. We're talking about less than 10 years, about 10 years. But we've grown. We've grown and we've expanded and we're doing more things and we're becoming visible and they're here. See, that single thing has led to the evolution of AFRON. AFRON has grants. AFRON itself is one. Oral health initiative is another thing. Many things are sprung up. This is from my own end. I don't know what's springing up from other people's end. So it's not always about money. It's about idea and creativity and to get money to come. This conference itself was just idea and creativity. So yes, you have to think about how to make things happen. That's why you're an intellect. I keep telling people that those in the research industry, you are an elite of yourself. I don't know if you don't recognize yourself as who you are. You are elites. You have the potential to create. You are above the average. So you can create and solve your problems. So if you have this as a challenge, solve it. Think, go out. Even here, if you have put it in the chat box, hi guys, this is my piece of work. If you want to collaborate with me, see what that lady did with Tino, and that's how life starts. They just called on Tino, please, I'm doing this work. On those platforms, Kudus has sent to you platforms, research hubs. Go to those hubs. I'm on some other hubs. They say, look, I'm doing this piece of work. Anybody wants to collaborate with me? Or go into your the people in the field and ask them. I remember when I was doing my PhD, I got stuck with my study on dental anxiety. I just looked in the places and I said, this name, Gunnar Glimba, kept coming up so much. And I wrote her, I've never met her till today. She supervised that project. I have never met her till today. I don't even know if she's dead. Researchers love research. They eat food. They can't resist research. Once you're bringing quality to the table, they will respond. I've spoken for too long. Apologies, it's just a passion from the heart. Do we have other questions? So guys, I hope I've answered you. You can't solve your problem. I don't know how to solve your problem. It's your problem. Apologies, it's not mine. Omotola, please put off your mic. It's not mine, but you can solve it. And I'm sure it's just listening to this lecture today, by the time you wake up tomorrow morning, you will have an idea. Do the idea, whatever the idea is, do it. If it doesn't work, you have learned one way of not doing it. The next idea, do it. The next idea, do it. And something clicks. And then you start to move. I hope it helps. Over to you, Yemisi. Next question, and most likely our last question.
No more question, ma'am.
Okay. All right.
In the question and answer.
Okay. So once again, I encourage you to please hold on. Gordon, Emmanuel, please share the link, please, for the evaluation. Please note, you have to fill the evaluation for 3 days to be able to get your certificates. Yeah, is there any other thing I want to say? And please, yes, thank you for being here. I've enjoyed myself. It's been a beautiful day for me. I hope it's been a beautiful day for you. On that note, I'd like to hand over to Yemisi to end the day. Thank you very much. Over.
Thank you so much, Prof. This is to appreciate everyone that had stayed till now. We are all making history. This is the maiden edition of the African Voices for Research, the virtual conference. We've been able to have our session, and we attest to the fact that there was no wasting of time. We started to time, and the first speaker, Professor Kurasha, was able to tell us the importance of our voices as researchers. Scientists are voices of trust. Let's take that home. Whatever we're doing ethically, let's be sure that we're representing the data we get on the feed. Then we have to be working on game-changing research, not just the prototype. And we should try and do something worthwhile that can speak to the community we are. We're talking about South-South collaboration. It will be worthwhile if we generate data that is applicable to our situation here in Africa, apart from being a data collection for people that are outside our continent. And we were able to go through the abstract presentation. Kudos to all our 6 presenters that kept to time. We appreciate you, and we so much appreciate the knowledge that you have imparted. And we appreciate Professor Salako that was able to facilitate the session. And we appreciate once again the Society for AIDS that is hosting this maiden edition of the virtual conference. We are really grateful. Tomorrow, let's please log up to time. That will be the second day, and we remember we have 3 days virtual conference. Tomorrow too, it will be much more exciting than today. So please come up to time. Don't be afraid in case you did not register for the second or the third day. The link will be sent to you. Just try to click and register ahead of time. And remember, you are to wait and fill the evaluation form. It will be filled online. So the link will be displayed here, and we all fill together. Thank you once again. We appreciate you. And looking forward to meeting you tomorrow when you will be talking about women and children's health issues by no other person than Dr. Julie. It promises to be exciting. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And God bless. On this, we have come to the end of today's section. Please hang on to fill the evaluation.